That's what's happening, and almost no one notices. You didn't turn cold, insensitive, or antisocial. You just realized that most of your exhaustion came from performing a role. The noise, the rush, the rented opinions, the permanent shop window. Every one of these needs an actor, and you got tired. Tired of shrinking to fit. Tired of asking your own conscience. Today I'm speaking to those who have felt guilt arrive at the very same time. You slow the pace, decline a few invitations, close a few tabs, and a deep relief opens only for a voice to whisper, "Have I become a hermit?" No, you just returned life to its proper volume. And that, as Arthur Schopenhauer would say, is lucidity, loosening the grip of blind will, the inner force that agitates us, and seeing the world as representation, noticing appearances as appearances so that they can no longer. Schopenhauer argued that happiness isn't a permanent state but a momentary easing. That pain is the baseline and satisfaction interrupts it. Too harsh maybe, but look back over the last month. How many things did you chase as if they would fix everything? How many worked for a few days only to demand another dose? When you took off the costume, you saw the circuit. The world offers an endless series of small prizes in exchange for your attention, and your attention is the most expensive currency you own. Without noticing, you accepted the game, and the more you played, the thirstier you felt, will pulled from the inside. Representation fed you images from the outside, and the loop kept humming. Then one day you tested what happens when you stop feeding the machine. What happens? Silence. The mind fidgets. The body protests. Friends ask questions, and you discover that it wasn't isolation at all. It was hygiene. You didn't stop loving people. You stopped loving rooms where you have to wear a disguise. Notice how guilt hides inside good intentions. I'll go because it's important to them. I'll stay because I don't want to. Disappoint, sometimes that's true. Many times it's fear of losing belonging, and fear of losing belonging is simply obedience to the will. Schopenhauer poked this nerve. We want because we want, and rarely know why. Give yourself a few days without an audience, and motives begin to separate. Habits that carried your signature but weren't really yours, preferences inherited from a group, opinions echoing the room. It's unsettling, it's also liberating. With the discomfort comes a gain. You begin to trade. How will I look for what is true for me? The shift seems small, but it changes everything. It changes the clothes you choose, the work you endure, the conversations you accept, the screens you open, the faith you actually practice. Someone will say, that's pessimism. It isn't. Pessimism predicts a sad ending before anything begins. What we're after is lucid realism. If life includes pain, and it does, the adult way isn't to deny the pain, but to place it. Schopenhauer pointed to 3 ways to lessen the will's pressure: art, compassion, and ascetic discipline. You don't need to become a monk. Art is any real contemplation that lifts you out of yourself and opens your eyes. Music, a painting, the sky after rain, the face of someone you love, the quiet that appears when you finally breathe. Compassion is the moment another's suffering loosens your ego's grip. Discipline is the patient choice that turns certain impulses into not. Today organizes appetite and gives attention a spine. Stop pretending you have to be everywhere, and you'll notice art returning, compassion becoming possible, because presence remains, and discipline shedding its punishments and turning into freedom. But what about my career, friends, opportunities? Return the question in the right form. What part is will disguised as duty? And what part is actual duty? Your body knows where your presence calms you. Stay and plant where your presence erases. You rise and leave. I'm not preaching theatrical heroism. I'm pointing to small coherent choices repeated with patience. The world shouts, if it isn't extreme, it doesn't count. Life whispers, what sustains you is simple. Sleeping well for 3 weeks is more revolutionary than a 3-day performative detox followed by a collapse back into chaos, saying a clean no beats accepting now and ghosting later. Silence can be kinder than a resentful speech. The retreat I'm suggesting isn't escape. It's return. Return to the center from which your choices flow. Without that center, kindness becomes spectacle, work becomes a shop window, friendship becomes contract. You might wonder when the mask fused to your skin. Usually it happens slowly. One flattering comment that rewires you. One fear that shuts you up. One comparison that traps you. A feed that captures you. A community that charges a toll. The toll is staying pleasant even. As something inside you shouts, the shout never dies. It only sleeps. As it sleeps, it works against you. Irritation becomes default. Anxiety becomes soundtrack. Cynicism becomes language. Then the bill arrives. Insomnia, distraction, apathy, foggy, anger. Getting out doesn't require a grand spectacle of renunciation. It asks for a series of micro acts of honesty. One per day, a confession. Few will notice at first, because the world is terrible at sensing interchange. But you will, and that's enough. When you trade a dozen likes for one paragraph that actually moves you, no one claps, but your tomorrow changes. You didn't isolate yourself, you simply stopped pretending. Repeat it when doubt knocks, because it will. You'll miss validation. You'll want to post to be seen. Accept invitations by reflex. Pick fights to prove courage. Open debates to appear deep. In those moments, use a simple test. Does this bring me toward myself or away from myself? If it pulls you away, it's the will tugging. If it draws you nearer, it's life calling. Saying no isn't aggression, it's hygiene. Saying yes isn't submission, it's coherence. The difference is in the root. A clean no builds respect. A poor yes collects resentment with interest. Which balance do you want? You're learning that respect is a way of loving that protects both sides. Honoring what is good for you without trampling what is good for another. That is a boundary. A boundary isn't a wall, it's a riverbank. Riverbanks allow water to flow. You may remember Schopenhauer's line, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. It sounds severe, but he wasn't glorifying isolation. He was reminding us that without solitude, freedom becomes a puppet for the crowd. Solitude is the place where you take possession of yourself, not to live there forever, but to return stronger. It is a laboratory for presence. There you notice which conversations drain and which nourish, which habits coarsen you and which refine you, which expressions of faith ignite you and which put you to sleep. There art breathes again, a song you truly hear, a paragraph you actually chew, a sunset you watch without planning the photo, not an escape. Practice seeing, practice feeling, practice choosing. Those who practice presence in solitude are able to give it back to everyday life. When you return differently. You go back to people, but not to the character. You revisit some places, but not every place. You speak again, but not to win arguments, to offer clarity. You create again, but not to prove your worth, to build meaning. It's as if you move to a borderland, not lost in the noise, not locked in silence, presence with Edges, availability without dependence, engagement without entanglement. This is the point where people seek you for who you've become, not for the role you used to play. Some arrive, exhausted by noise. Others sense a serenity they can't name. Others just want to talk without masks. You don't appoint yourself anyone's savior. You open a space where true encounters can happen. Sometimes these become words, art, projects, work, friendships. Sometimes they become a simple look that says, I see you, and that is enough. There are moments when changing from the inside without leaving the room is possible. There are also systems that feed on your compliant silence. The difference is felt in the body. Where your presence calms you, stay. Where it erases you, leave. Fidelity is not to routine. It is to truth. Every time you betray what you know, life charges invisible interest. Bad sleep, irritability, cynicism, loss of joy. Every time you honor it, life pays the opposite. Interest, lightness, discernment, quiet strength. This is not cheap mysticism, it's hygiene of consciousness. The body carries sensors for truth and deception. Mute them long enough, and they start screaming in symptoms. The silence that heals isn't an absence of sound. It's the end of inner dissonance. Someone will ask, but what about the people who need me? Silence doesn't vaccinate you against love. It purifies it. You don't abandon, you learn to care without breaking. You don't disappear, you define edges. You offer help that doesn't infantilize, presence that doesn't charge a fee, words that don't manipulate. You stop kidnapping others with your care and stop outsourcing your peace to someone else's approval. Love without performance looks different, less showy, more real, less dramatic, more steady. It's when yes is whole and no is respectful. Compassion looks, without invading, it extends a hand, without handcuffs. Faith isn't a shop window, it's ground for every day. If this makes sense, you can see it clearly now. It wasn't isolation, it was honesty. You stop pretending you enjoy what hurts, that you fit what squeezes, that you believe what contradicts you. That doesn't make you superior. It makes you truthful.